Hey guys, it's Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of our Powerlifting for the People podcast. Today we're going to continue our conversation on kind of our Westside or concurrent style training. We're going to look at how we kind of break up a training week and then also a training month. And I'm going to kind of go through some different ways you can kind of break up the training if you want to try out like a Westside style system. I'm also going to kind of cover some differences if you're a raw or equipped lifter, some things to consider. So in general, you're going to need to commit at least 4 days a week to a Westside style program. You're going to have 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days. 2 of them are going to be dedicated to max effort training, so heavier work, and 2 dedicated to a dynamic effort training. You could absolutely do a 3-day split for concurrent, and maybe we can have another video if you guys want. You can shoot us a message if that's something you're interested in. But today we're going to kind of talk about your typical split of 4 days a week. So we're going to assume we want at least 48 hours in between, at least every other day. So we want 48 to 72 hours of kind of rest between kind of extreme workouts. So we're going to have Monday and Friday is going to be a good amount of time between 2 lower body days, and Wednesday and Saturday between the upper body days. Usually the max effort work is more taxing on the nervous system. Good. So in general, you're going to want to space out. You want to have at least a day in between your max effort upper and max effort lower if possible. And like there was a time I couldn't train on the weekends for whatever reason, so I was kind of doing like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which was not ideal. But you're going to need to make do with what you have. So ideally, something like a Monday, Wednesday, between your max effort upper and max effort lower is going to be a good amount of time in between. So like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Friday being your dynamic effort lower and Saturday being your dynamic effort upper would be a great way to split things up. If you have to do any of them back-to-back, doing the dynamic effort workouts back-to-back would be good. If you had to do your dynamic effort workout on a Sunday, you could also do having this dynamic effort upper is going to be the least taxing, so having that workout done back-to-back with something else would be the way I would break it up. So I have 2 different columns here, and there's going to be some different situations. In general, for like your max effort exercises, again, like I talked about before, every 4 weeks or so, I think having some sort of like testing lift is going to be a good idea. So figuring out what those movements are for you is going to be important. Again, for us, using some type of like reverse band movement is going to be good. Something that's going to be close to the competition movement, but maybe not exactly. So something like a reverse band. And again, if you're a raw lifter or a weaker lifter, using a lighter reverse band is going to be preferred. A slingshot as well would be great for bench. For people that are weaker and raw lifters, something like a looser slingshot or more reactive slingshot would be good. And if you're an equipped lifter, just using a tighter slingshot or something like a Titan Ram or something, or like a Mad Dog slingshot could be a great option as well. Like we talked about before, on the max effort day, like you could certainly use accommodating resistance. For the raw lifter, I'd kind of shy away from the accommodating resistance a little bit in general. For the equipped lifter, doing a little bit more bands and chains when you're raw is fine. When you're in your suit and you're a newer like equipped lifter, I think again doing more, just practicing the technique, practicing straight weight, doing some reverse band stuff, maybe doing some lower boards is good for like the newer equipped lifter as well. So a board press could also be like an indicator lift as well, especially if it's a lower board, like a 1 board or a half board or something like that. So for this particular, you could pick from some sort of squat variation, some sort of good morning variation, or some sort of deadlift variation. In our system, we don't really use the good morning as like a max effort lift anymore, but you certainly could if you had success with that in the past. Again, we talked about last week, you're going to have more free squatting variations for a raw lifter if you want to do more box squatting variations for an equipped lifter, especially the box squat. If you're doing raw stuff, the box squat I think is a little bit easier on the hips, a little bit easier to recover from. It's going to allow you a little bit of a wider stance. So again, in general, the max effort work is going to be mostly singles, but again, I think doing some 3-rep maxes and even 5-rep stuff could be helpful from time to time, especially if you want to put some more muscle on. So in this kind of progression in week 1, you could do something like a safety squat bar for 3 rep max. Again, if you are an equipped lifter, you could do that to a box or use a little bit of a wider stance. If you're a raw lifter, you could add a pause or do like a closer stance for that as well. In the second week, we switched over. We still kept the safety bar, but we switched it to an Anderson or a pin squat. So we're going to do 5 heavy singles there in the 90% range. You could even do 5 singles at that 3 rep max weight if you'd like, or slightly above. So you could try to break a record, or you could just hit the 90% singles there. And then the third week, we switched to a sumo block pull. Again, if you're a raw lifter, probably a little bit closer to the ground. If you're an equipped lifter, if you're doing that exercise raw, you could potentially go a little bit higher if you'd like. But in general, we like about a 1.5 inch elevation for a sumo block pull off the floor. And then in the fourth week would be more of like a testing week. So we're going to do a reverse band, 3 rep max. If you were in your full equipment, we would recommend maybe just taking 3 singles, maybe working up to like an opener, a second attempt, or a third attempt, depending on where you are in your training cycle. So this would be a good time. So if you're a raw lifter, you could do a rep max. If you're an equipped lifter, I prefer, if you're especially in your full gear, just hitting more multiple singles to practice your technique. And you could add knee wraps if you're a knee wrap lifter in the testing week as well. On the flip side, if you are newer and you need a little bit more time to get accustomed to the lift, another option would be in week 1, you could do the 3 rep max through a safety squat bar. The second week, you can still do a safety squat bar and hit some couple of singles there, so you're actually doing the same exercise 2 weeks in a row. And in this example, same kind of deal. You can do a 3 rep max block pull, and then 3 singles in the fourth week, so there's no like testing exercise for that example. That's just an example of like, you could not, if you're a newer lifter, you don't need to switch the exercises as frequently, and you could string, maybe 1, 2, even 3 weeks in a row of the same movement, but maybe just increasing the weight as you get more comfortable with the exercise. So we have a similar example for upper body. The main difference is going to include some downsets and just include a little bit more volume. I think in general, those people need to just increase the frequency and volume of upper body just a little bit more in general, whereas I think that people maybe need to back off the volume and the frequency on the lower body in general, because it's more, since you're loading the spine, just for longevity. But in general, the upper body can usually handle a little bit more. So in this example, we're using a Duffalo bar bench. If you're an equipped lifter, then maybe you would just do like a board press instead. But we did a Duffalo bar bench because it's going to increase the range of motion for the raw lifter. So we have a 3 rep max, and maybe like you take 80% of that. There's something Jesse Burdick would have me do. We call it the 80% method. So you take 80% of the 3 rep max, and then just do 2 down sets of 5 reps, or maybe 2 AMRAP sets after, leaving some reps in the tank. In week 2, we have a pin press. So if you're a raw lifter, it could be a dead bench where it's right off your chest or slightly above. If you're an equipped lifter, you could certainly do a higher pin press to work your triceps more, or do a closer grip. So if you want to attack your triceps, you could certainly do a little bit of a closer grip, and that would be a good switch for an equipped lifter. You can also do a board press and placement pin press. The difference is going to be the starting power. And in week 3, we have a floor press versus chains, 4 doubles there. You could do a Thompson style, where you just keep adding chain weight, like we mentioned before, as an equipped lifter, or you can add straight weight, increase the weight over time. And then in the fourth week, an example of a testing would be a slingshot 3 rep max, or if you're an equipped lifter, you could do some sort of escalating board, so working down to boards for certain attempts, or doing reverse bands inside of a rack if you're a shirt lifter. So those are some examples of like a test. That'd be an example of a testing week where you're trying to see how your progress is going. On the other example, if we need more volume, or if you're a new lifter, you could do same kind of deal. Week 1, Duffalo bar bench, 3 rep max, then some down sets. In the second week, you could do 5 doubles with the Duffalo bar. And again, if you're an equipped lifter, I'd probably do, instead of doing a Duffalo bar, you could do like a board press for like 2 weeks. And then in the next 2 weeks, we do a floor press, 3 rep max in week 3, and then in week 4, 5 singles in the floor press. So also, hopefully you can see, I just kind of purposely just show, we do a little bit more volume in general on that upper body day, because you could typically handle a little bit more for the upper body. So those are examples of max effort lower. That's like an example of a training week and a training month. We can kind of go into, in general, if we're doing let's going back to day 1, we could also include a second, what we call a second barbell lift, or a supplemental exercise. And this could be anywhere from 2 to 5 sets on a high volume week of anywhere from like 5 to 8 reps. In general, if you're doing a max effort movement that's a squat, I would pick either a deadlift or a good morning variation. So maybe you're after doing a safety squat bar squat, maybe you're doing some good mornings or stiff leg deadlifts for your supplemental lift. If you're doing a deadlift variation, maybe you're going to do a supplemental squat. So you're doing like a pause squat, a belt squat, or something of that nature. On Wednesday, kind of same thing. You could definitely do a supplemental bench exercise. Again, maybe 3 to 6 sets of 5 to 10 reps, so a little bit higher volume. And if you're doing something that's a little bit more low end, maybe you're doing something that's higher end, so maybe more tricep work. If you're doing the Duffalo bar bench, if you're doing a board press, maybe your supplemental exercise is a little bit more to work off the chest, or like an overhead press or a shoulder press, some sort of other pressing variation that's going to be different. Or maybe it's just more down sets of volume like we talked about before, but that's a good way to, and then after you do your supplemental exercises, you could do anywhere from 2, 3, even upwards of 5. So pick 2 to 5 accessory movements, and you're going to use the repetition effort method for those days. Like we talked about before, on the max effort day, the lower body day, if you're an equipped lifter, it's going to be a little bit more posterior chain dominant, whereas if you're a raw lifter, you're going to need a mix of anterior chain and posterior chain, so not just glutes and hamstrings, but also your quads as well. So it's going to be important. For the upper body day, a raw lifter is going to prioritize probably more shoulders and pecs, and if you're weaker off the chest, certainly. If you're weaker off the lockout, or if you're an equipped lifter, more triceps and upper back and lats is going to be a priority for you guys. And lats is going to be important no matter, and you could do potentially lats in a Westside program up to 4 times a week, but I would say at a minimum twice, because the upper back is so important, so crucial. On the dynamic effort lower body day, so I have 2 examples of doing, if you're a weaker lifter, or you could do the 5x5s and do volume, or you could do the traditional kind of waves. So in the example I did here, on week 1 we have 8 sets of 2, 55%, maybe 25% band tension. 10 sets of 2 in week 2. We're going to bump, we're increasing the frequency and the intensity, increasing the volume and intensity in this example. You could just increase the amount of sets and keep the weight static, or you can increase both or one or the other. But we're increasing 5% each week in this example. So this was just a 3-week wave, and then you can kind of start it over. So in the week 3, we have 12 sets of 2 at 65%, so that's going to be the highest intensity and the highest amount of volume. And then we might deload. So in the week 4, we might do 6 sets of 2. Maybe we keep the intensity the same, or maybe we drop it down to 50%, depending on how you feel. I also use the example of like a supplemental exercise, kind of the Jenkinson kind of method of every week we're going to increase the amount of weight for 5 sets of 5 on a deficit deadlift, so I thought that was a cool idea and something he's successful with, so I wanted to share that. You could also do your speed pulls at a similar percent and similar sets and reps. You could do your speed pulls after your dynamic squats as well, so that's an option for you. In the other example, we have 5x5s, and each week we're just going to increase the amount of weight. You can increase in a linear fashion. You can increase a certain amount of weight, like say 5 to 10 pounds each week, or you can increase the amount of weight a little bit bigger, like say like 5% of your max. So, like if you're a 500-pound squatter, for example, maybe you're starting off your 5x5, something modest, maybe at like 315 or something, 335, and maybe you're increasing the amount of weight 25 pounds every week or something like that. And you're just going to increase that weight over time. Maybe you're using a safety bar on that day, maybe you're using straight weight. If you want more form practice, I recommend you can use the competition movement if you'd like. If you're an equipped lifter, on this day you can use a gateway brief or a loose brief, or just something to kind of protect your hips. And again, you could use a box squat. If you're a raw lifter, I recommend doing a free squat. If you're an equipped lifter, I think a box squat is a fine tool on this day, and it also kind of makes sure, sometimes with the lighter weights, especially when you're wearing even a loose brief, it could be hard to figure out where your depth is. So a box could be a good tool to make sure you're hitting a good depth standard as an equipped lifter as well. Last but not least, we have our dynamic effort upper workout. So I had a little bit more volume on this day. So week 1, 8 sets of 3 at 60%, then 12 sets of 3 at 60%, and then 15 sets of 3 at 60% in week 3. So that's what we call more of like a static wave, where the intensity is staying the same, but we're increasing the volume over time. Other things that you could do, like Matt Wenning sometimes will like start off with chains, and then you might either add more chains or add more bands. So you might keep the bar weight the same, but you can increase the compounding resistance. That's one option. In general, for the raw lifter, the straight weight percentage is going to be a little bit higher, and then the band tension and chain weight is going to be a little bit less. And for an equipped lifter, I would advise that the chain and the band tension can be a little higher, and the straight weight be a little bit lower. For the supplemental exercises, again, you can kind of do time sets, you can do more dumbbell work. Usually this is more of like a bodybuilding day for the secondary stuff. If you did a lot of tricep, if your supplemental exercise on day 2 was more tricep heavy, you might want to do some more shoulder. So maybe you're doing more incline pressing, maybe you're doing more wide grip benching. Louis Simmons would talk about doing illegally wide grips for sets of 6s. You could do that as a supplemental exercise, or you could do timed dumbbell presses and other things. So if you did a lot of tricep work on day 2, probably hit a little bit more chest emphasis and shoulder emphasis, maybe some overhead pressing on the 4th day. And again, another example here, if maybe you don't have enough muscle to do true speed work, you could also do 5x5s, increasing the weight. So again, maybe you're a 300-pound bencher. Maybe you start off with 5x5, around 225, and then you're increasing the amount of weight by like 5 to 10 pounds each workout. And that could be like in place of your speed day, you're doing more repetition work, but still trying to focus on a lot of good bar speed, form, and force production. On this particular day, again, you could have your grips change set to set, or you could have one static grip in general. You want to use this day to practice form and force production, so probably using your competition grip is a good idea for most of the time. But again, if you want to work more triceps, if you want to work different muscle groups, you can feel free to also switch up your grips every set. Sometimes you might do like medium, close, and wide throughout the course of a speed workout. So that's an option as well. Same kind of deal if you want to have a supplemental. Usually on the dynamic effort lower, if you're doing squats, speed squats and speed pulls, you probably won't have time to do a supplemental exercise, but you certainly could if you wanted to. I would probably keep it a little bit lower intensity, so maybe some high rep good mornings would be good on that day, or just maybe some heavy glute hams or barbell back extensions, so like a 45-degree back raise would be like a good supplemental movement. And then you want to, again, hit some similar muscle groups, but maybe different exercises for your accessories on the dynamic effort lower day. On the dynamic effort upper day, again, hit some different accessory movements for like your arms, your chest, your triceps. For, again, a raw lifter is going to prioritize and have a balance between anterior chain and posterior chain, so again, a little bit more chest and shoulder dominant. And then the equipped lifter is going to prioritize triceps a little bit more because they're going to need that lockout strength. So this is an example of a Westside style template and some different ways you can kind of break it up and kind of organize your training. As you get closer to a contest, again, you're going to want to get more specific. You want to add in your competition gear a little bit more frequently. You're definitely going to want to have those testing lifts in at least every 4 weeks, kind of getting ready for, let's say if you have like a 16 or 12-week prep, you want to at least have at least one testing exercise on the max effort day at least every 4 weeks or so you kind of know that you're progressing. And then there's different ways to kind of peak in things. It's going to be very individual, but if you want to kind of get introduced to kind of Westside style training, I would definitely go visit Westside yourself, because again, if you're not at Westside, you're not training Westside, but this is kind of a way you can kind of use concurrent training. I'd also definitely check out Matt Wenning as a resource if you're kind of more interested. He probably does the concurrent stuff probably better than anyone else besides obviously Louis himself. So you can definitely check out Wenning Strength. Definitely check out the Powerlifting Handbook if you want to kind of a little bit more in-depth knowledge about some of the principles behind some of these methods. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please give it a thumbs up. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out the links below. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.